Good evening. Elman Green here with Homewood Nation, and welcome to Tech Tuesday on December 2nd, 2014. Tech Tuesday with Shimira Williams, and we're here with Ms. Williams. Say howdy, Ms. Williams.
Howdy.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing good. Got a glass of hot chocolate. Just, it's cold out.
Yes, I'm jealous. I should have heated up some tea myself. All right. So tonight is the final episode of an 8-part series on taking your business online. And tonight we're looking at, finally, choosing a web designer, which a lot of people, when they, business owners, think about going online, sometimes that's the first thing they think of is, oh, I got to get somebody to design my website for me. And that's a good thing to do, but we've just spent 7 episodes talking about some things that we kind of want to have in place before we do that. So for tonight, we cap our 8-part series with looking at how to choose a web designer. And if you haven't done that before, how would a person get started on even finding someone to consider, no less actually choosing them to do the job?
To find someone you want to consider, you probably want to look at other websites first. I suggest you look at 5 websites related to your industry, meaning if you are a bar owner, look at websites for other bars. If you're a journalist, look at other journalist sites that you like. Click on their web designer's information. Look at their portfolio. Ask someone whose website you actually like locally and ask them who designed it and how they felt about that person. It's a trusting thing that you're letting somebody basically take your ideas and making a digital footprint for you. So you don't want to be haste in your decision. You might want to ponder it for a while. You might want to make sure that you are selecting the best person for you and not the most cost-effective all the time.
Okay, now that's an interesting distinction that you're making there. Can you break that down for us a little more? Best person versus the most cost-effective?
Well, graphic artists will tell you that they are web designers, and web designers will say they're graphic artists, but you typically find that one is either or. They're very rarely both.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may want to find a graphic artist and get your graphics together, and that be your first step. And that can be a costly endeavor, starting between $300 to $400 just for a basic logo. Let's not talk about the pictures and slides that you may want on there, or if you want a video on there, how that needs to be edited. But then you have a web designer who actually puts all that content together, because the biggest conception is your web designer is going to write your website for you and come up with all the graphics for you. That's not true. They expect you to have all that stuff, and their job is to design it and put it on a site that is beautiful, user-friendly, mobile-ready. It collects data for you so that you can find out how people are using your site, but they're not necessarily going to write your About Us page.
Okay.
And if they do, they're going to charge you.
Right. There's a little above and beyond there.
So that's one thing that you really need to consider is what is the person's going to do for you. What's your budget? If your budget is $250, don't expect 5 pages with stuff flying across the screen and graphics everywhere and video in plugs and social plugs and widgets, and that's not going to happen for $250. That's more like a $10,000 website, and people are like, $10,000 for a website? But a graphic artist is starting at $300, so you got to give that some leeway to be realistic to your goals and your budget. So that's why I say don't just go with the most cost-effective person, depending on what your needs are. Maybe you should start small, like we talked about in previous. I think that was series what 3 was.
I've lost track.
It's number 3 where we talked about just setting up and getting it up and established, and maybe a landing page is where you start because you can always build on a website. And so when you pick one, be realistic of what your needs are at that moment.
And if you're in fact a brick and mortar operation where your sales actually take place inside your store, one page may be all that you need in the beginning, just to let people know where you are, to let people know where they can come to buy your stuff.
And for brick and mortar places like that, I totally recommend a landing page, because the landing page's objective is to push sales and maybe have promotional items on there. So it might be that call of action to come into our store, you get a 20% discount. You had to be online to get the coupon. It's not a coupon you can get at the store or anywhere else. And so if you're a brick and mortar, that's what you want. You want your website to bring people into your store.
Yeah.
Until you're ready for an e-commerce store, which is a whole nother. We could do a whole nother hangout on that topic alone.
That's part of the next series. But we are making a distinction, and I want to be sure that people get this, between the web designer or the website designer and the graphic artist, because the website designer is someone who should be knowledgeable in code, in writing things for the computer, and the graphic artist is the one who makes nice pictures and puts them together. So if you and you may need, and it's very common to need both, right?
Yes, you will need both, because you need the beautiful pictures for people to stay on your page. We're a visual society. We want to see graphics. We want to see pictures or video. Having music load on your site is 90s-ish.
That was quite the thing on MySpace.
It was. And now all the rage is what? Pop-up video ads that kind of drive me crazy too, but.
Right. So if someone is just beginning to reach out, say they get in touch first with a web designer, then one of the questions that you might want to ask that person is, hey, do you have a graphic artist that you work with?
Yes. They should be asking them, do they have a graphic artist that they work with? If there's a graphic artist on their team, if there's a graphic artist on retainer, if they say to you, oh, I know how to use Photoshop, say, okay, or can I see your portfolio, is another way to not disregard that person's work, but actually take a look at it and say, well, can I see your portfolio of graphics that you've done? And they should have multiple fonts. They should know about the helix colors, because we take that for granted, but there's thousands of colors and they have a code that go to them, and if the code colors aren't right, your colors don't really match up, to the layperson. You're like, orange is orange to me, but there's a code. There's a code embedded in there. There's a number attached to that color, and are they using that for your font and in your logo? As a matter of fact, when you get your graphic from your graphic artist, you should ask them for the color code so that your web designer makes sure that those colors match.
Right. Because if the web designer uses a number that's different from the number that they need for the color that the graphic arts person has in place, then you don't get that color.
I mean, colors are really a formula. My dad's a painter, so he'll if I want to color, my office is orange, so you can see in my closet. And I was like, oh, I want some more of the orange paint. He was like, well, the formula's on file, and I never really thought about it like that. That the paint store actually has a formula for every color when they mix it up. So the same thing goes, that nice little palette you see. There's numbers behind that. So once again, making sure your graphic artist is communicating or at least provides you with that content, and that they know a web developer or know that those things are in web development is essential, because it makes a difference. Even down to your font. What font is that?
Yes. Every time I get in a conversation about fonts, I remember the incident with the discovery of the Higgs boson particle, which was one of the great events in the history of physics, and the announcement for that came online with a font called Comic Sans. And for those of you who don't know fonts, Comic Sans is a font that's used in comics. So the announcement for this gigantic scientific discovery, when it came online, it looked like a page from a comic book. It was.
Which means they probably didn't have a good graphics person or web designer in their office, because they would have known that that's for like daycare or childcare. I own a childcare facility, and Comic Sans is fine to use because it's kid friendly. It kind of looks like a kid. It's a cartoon, but it's definitely not something I would want on my technical consulting firm.
Yes. There you go. Speaking of the more technical side of things, the web designer himself or herself, web designers write code, or they handle computer code, and there are different kinds of platforms that they use, and there are different languages that they use to tell the computers what they want the computers to do to make the page look the way that it looks. What should we be looking for, we being the business person, what computer languages should our web designer be familiar with, or what should we be looking to hear from them? We want to hear them say, I'm able to do your website in X language.
CSS is a popular language right now, and most WordPress things are designed in that coding language. Rails is also, Ruby Rails is another one. Python, Drupal is another a platform that people are using these days. Jumble. So you probably want to know what you should at least ask. What language would you be writing my site in? What platform would I be able to use to access it? It could be on a WordPress platform so that you can manage it yourself after they're done designing it. But there'll be code in the background that you will probably never see moving around. Or even if you see it, you don't understand it.
So we're talking about CSS, Ruby Rails.
Yeah, Ruby Rails.
Somebody should do a song about Ruby Rails. I met her at a bar, but we didn't get far. Ruby Rails.
Ruby on Rails, yes.
Anyway, we mentioned CSS, Ruby Rails.
Ruby on Rails.
And And of course, there's the old standby, the
HTML.
you call it the original language of the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it still works. So what are we at? HTML5 now?
yeah, yeah. I actually was pretty good with HTML up through 3. When it got to 4, I started to lose my touch. I have to see if I can dive back into it.
Yes, and a lot of so you should ask what language it's going to be programmed in, or what languages they at least know, or their resume should at least indicate the languages that they know.
Mm-hmm.
So that you could at least feel like, oh, okay, I at least know you know a language or know what you're talking about. Because there are plenty drag and drop platforms out there designed for self-designing, such
Right.
as Weebly and Wix. Squarespace is a new one that's getting popular. I've seen Big Cartel. WordPress, you can design your own WordPress. You can download a theme. They have free themes and themes you pay for if you want to sit there and muddle through WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
I love when people say, I'll self-design, but they don't realize that, if there's code already placed in a place and you don't remove that code, you hit the publish button, that code will show up. It doesn't know not to show up, that it was a template or like it was a space holder. So it'll show up and you're like, why is there another language on your site? And it's because it was a pre-done template and they didn't remove certain pieces of content. So if you would like to self-design, be mindful that you read the entire theme or template before you hit the publish button. You delete the stuff that you need to delete. And you basically review what you have, because there also may be hidden pages that you don't see.
Oh, really?
Right, like, there's a drop-down box and you didn't realize that drop-down box linked to another page, and so you didn't realize that I should have deleted this page or made it inactive.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So not everything that's contained in a template is something that you would want to have on your specific site. So you just kind of need to check in and make sure.
I recommend you start small. One page is okay to start. It's great. You have an online presence. You're at your own domain. That's a big deal. Start small and build.
Okay.
And make sure you have a budget for it, because it's going to require maintenance and updating. And so you don't want to just rush into it and be overwhelmed.
And you just touched on, again, a theme that we've repeated in the past, and we're going to repeat it again because it is so important to actually own your own domain. When you bring on a web designer and or graphic artist, you don't want them to be the ones to own the domain. You don't want them to be the ones to actually sign up with the internet naming entity for your name, because when they're done with their job and working for you and they move on to their next client, if they own it, then they can do anything with it.
So I am a very big stickler about that one. Even if you do have them set it up for you, one of the first things you should get back is who your domain register is, meaning whoever it's registered with, whether it's GoDaddy, 1&1, Bluehost, whoever the register is, you should know. Mm-hmm. If they won't tell you, you can always go to whos.net. That's WHOIS.net, and search, unless they have put a privacy block on it, which costs them an additional fee. So most times, most people won't. But you should own it. I equate it to, you don't hire an accountant and tell them to go open up your bank accounts and say, send me a quarterly report on my statements, or give me access to my online banking so I can see what you're doing. You go set up a bank account and then find an accountant and then tell them, here's how much access you have. The same thing goes with your web hosting. Do not let anyone control your web hosting. If you paid for your web hosting, which you did, if you've got a web design done, it's yours. You own that web hosting service, how much ever space it is, whatever bandwidth it is, that's yours. You need to have access to it. You need your username and password to get in there. It controls basically your whole website, whether it's how you back it up, how you maintain it, how you make changes. Once again, you own that. You don't want to get in a disagreement with your web designer or graphic artist and them being hold your stuff hostage because you guys are in a disagreement.
Right.
Which also brings me to the suggestion of have a work for hire agreement in place for your web designer and your graphic artist so that you own those designs and content. Because if you ever want to copyright it, you want to say that you have complete ownership of it. And I can tell you that getting a work for hire agreement off of a graphic artist after the fact,
What's up with that?
it's challenging because then you're like, well, I'm copywriting my logo, and they're like, oh, well, will I get any fees of service for your copy? Like, so am I on the royalty? And you're like, no, that's the whole point of me copywriting. And so if you present that up front, then you know that you own that. You'll have ownership of it. So if you do decide to copyright your logo, it's yours.
Right.
I'm going through that process right now, and I'm trying to copyright my logo for my child care facility, and
yes.
I'm speaking from experience.
We will just leave it there. Just thinking a little more about the technical aspects of owning and operating and running a website. It doesn't have to be totally overwhelming, but there are some pieces that you definitely need to have in place. One of them is being sure that you have the ability to manage the thing, that you have the access, that you have the passwords. Another is making sure that there's why am I getting stuck? It was right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, there it is. Backups. Can we talk about backups? Or having backup?
So, two distinctions. One, a website and a blog are completely different. A website can contain a blog, and then there's a website. A blog is something that you actually probably generate content on a lot more frequently. So if you blog, I would suggest you backing up probably at least weekly if you are posting content weekly. If you are slackadaisical like I am and only get around to posting content once a month, you still want to back up at least once a month. You should back your website up once a month. And backing it up means if it crashes, if your internet service provider gets a glitch or a virus, or you're hacked, or like we talked about last week, you are blacklisted by Google, you can recover your site. You don't have to start all over again because you backed it up and you have a copy of all that code that was written for your website.
Okay. And can we talk a bit about the different ways that you can do backups, because the people have more options available now than we used to have in the past, when when you put something on a floppy disk and you and you stuck it
So
in.
if you are most of the time you can just export your website's code out. There's always usually a nice little feature that says export. It'll come in a zip file. Zip files are still ruling the world. We no longer have zip drives. I mean, you remember those?
Oh, do I remember?
Like you thought you were doing something. Like I have a zip drive now.
Right, 120 megabytes. Look at me.
um, and so you can download it and store it on your flash drive or hard drive. You can put it on your clouds. If you have WordPress, you can drop it into Dropbox. Dropbox will do a backup for you automatically.
Okay.
You can connect your WordPress site and your Dropbox account. You can connect your your WordPress and your Google Drive. So your clouding services, if you're running on WordPress, will back it up for you. But most other platforms are going to make you hit a button that says export. And you would probably need to go to your FTP site. Yes, FTP is still running. That still happens in the background. That's really still the same way to back up your files. You can put them on a CD drive. You can put them on a thumb drive. Put them on your phone, on a cloud, on the cloud, as they say.
So CDs, thumb drives. If you want to go to physical media, you can back up to the cloud. Oh, you said you could back up just by exporting the data to a file.
Yep.
Mm.
As I mentioned, and I think that was number 4, having an external hard drive is great if you do a lot of content or have a lot of content. I know people who swap out their drives. They actually have a mirrored drive, and the mirrored drive, they switch them in and out every month, and the mirrored drive stays in a safe deposit box. So in case a fire should occur in their home, they always have a backup of their stuff. Because really geeky, techie people are always afraid that the cloud will crash still.
Yes. The cloud is, where is it? What does it do? Who
Going
owns
to burst into rain showers and all your data's gone.
Right. So let me see if I'm following, though, because when we talk about backing up a website onto our own machine or to our own device, and then you're talking about some folks then have a second drive that they swap with that drive.
Yep, or they have one of those like 128 gigabyte flash drives that they could throw stuff on, and then they throw that in the safety deposit box so that if there's still a problem, if all your systems crash, if there's a fire, computers are not fire retard. They're going to burn.
Yeah.
All your data will be gone, and you're like, no. Especially if you have been, you've had a website for a long time. If you're a blogger and have been blogging for a long time, just imagine all of your content staying. Yeah.
So back up, and if you really want to feel safe, back up your backups.
Yes, I like to use the Outkast song. I got a backup plan for my backup plan to back up my backup plan. Just in case.
Just in case. Okay, so we've actually touched on. Wait, what is that?
This is my 500 gigabyte external drive.
All right, all right. Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about physical media, okay. I don't have 500 gigabytes, but let's see. I have 1 gigabyte here, and I got 16 gigabytes here.
You don't want to know how many flash drives I have on my desk.
Yeah. So, but I mean, theoretically, I could divide the content on my computer into little slices and put one on each thumb drive and put each thumb drive in a different location. And, I'm
And you still would have a backup. I mean, all jokes aside, having a backup of your website is critical. It truly is critical. Even if it is, you backed it up and you sent it to someone else on email, or it could be that simple if it's not that big of a file. So while I'm joking, like while we're making jokes about file drives, having a backup is truly essential to your life. If you don't do it monthly, please do it quarterly. It's the end of the year. If you haven't done it, please schedule some time to do it.
Do it tonight. Just go ahead and do it now, right now. But this does all go back to the conversation that you need to have with your web designer or the person that you're considering to be a web designer, because one of the questions that you need to ask is a question like, what options will I have for backing up my website?
Yes. And if they cannot answer you that, I would suggest you move on to the next person.
Keep it moving. Next. So.
And the next question you need to be asking is, how will my website be maintained?
Mm-hmm.
Will I be able to self-maintain, meaning that you can go in and make minor changes on your own? Maybe your pricing changed. If you're a restaurant, maybe your menu has changed. Or do you need to call them every time you want to change? And every time you want to change is going to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be mindful of that when you're budgeting.
Right.
If they say, every time you would like to make a change, you would need to contact us. You need to find out how much a change is per page. And do they have a maintenance fee structure? Is it a per page item? Is it an hourly rate to make a change? Because you might want just another picture uploaded, and while you think it's a 10-minute item, like just upload a picture, and you're like, it's like Facebook, it's going to take you 2 minutes, and they're like, no, it's really not going to take me 2 minutes. I have to recode some things. So you need to ask, what's my maintenance going to be on my website? Because all websites need to be maintained.
Right.
Technology is always changing. People have Flash sites. Some people still have sites with Flash on them, and they don't work mobilely. We've talked about that too. And as new devices come out, as new methods of accessing the internet come out, your website is going to need to stay updated to those. And so asking about a maintenance plan is critical.
Would it make sense for a business owner going in to have the expectation or the intent that they will review their website at least quarterly for updates,
That's it's going to depend on your industry, but quarterly is actually a great way to look at it, because quarterly, next we're going to talk about SEOs. You want to see who's actually visiting your website, how often are they visiting, how are they visiting. We talked about that last week, about how you could use tools like Webmaster to figure that stuff out. And see, do I need to make a change to my site? Are people bouncing? Is my bounce rate so high because my landing page or home page is convoluted, it's not user friendly? it doesn't work mobily. Those are questions that you need to know. Is my site going to be responsive? Meaning it will adjust to whatever device it is pulled up on. Whether you're at a computer or on a tablet or on your phone, will your website adjust to that? Flash is dead. Apple kind of killed it. It's not really dead, but a lot of things won't take Flash sites.
Right.
And we all know that we have shorter attention spans. Like if it doesn't work on my mobile device, when I heard about it and typed it into my phone, I'm not going to wait till I get home to actually look at you again. It's kind of like I'm going to move on to the next person.
Yeah. Not being mobile friendly is simply no longer an option for anybody who wants to reach the broadest possible audience. It's just not.
I mean, realistically, there are people who don't have computers. There are people who've never owned a computer. They don't even have a tablet. Their whole thing is their phone. Why would I buy anything else? Because my phone's in my pocket. I always have it. It connects to the internet. And as big as they are now, and yes, I have a phablet-sized phone.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Everybody does. They're like, your phone is bigger than your face. It's kind of now like, well, it doesn't work on it. Doesn't work on my phone. It's now becoming it's a necessity. It's truly a necessity. So yes, quarterly is something that you probably should consider. Definitely annually, because you have to renew your hosting and your domains, and so when it's time to do that, you should definitely be looking at, do I also need to be making changes to my site? Was it backed up? Was it, your website needs quarterly maintenance. To be honest, your website does need quarterly maintenance. It needs to be backed up at least quarterly. It needs to be reviewed. Do I need updates? Did your phone number change? Are you offering a new service or a product that you need to get out there that people just don't know because it happened in the last 6 months? It also helps you plan. What products are you going to roll out? Should you be rolling, do you need to get it on your site 3 months in advance because the way you've set up your maintenance? And maybe it says coming soon, or maybe it's just in queue for you.
Right. So it becomes maintaining and updating the website can become part of your actual, depending on what type of business you have, it can become part of your actual production process because it can help you to schedule your production of different things. So.
Yeah, maybe you've got a newspaper article written about you in the last quarter, and you don't know how to add a link, but you got to wait for your web designer to add your link, and you're like, I need this out today. I want this out like now.
It's not familiar, huh? No. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago about SEO and that's search engine optimization, and is a really huge factor in the use of websites because you want your website to show up to Google and Yahoo and other search engines. So you want it to be optimized for that, and you want your website designer to know how to do that, and to help you to be able to do it after they're gone, right?
Right. You want them to at least be able to put the code in to make sure that you are tracking your website traffic and information so that you could at least get the data, even if they don't want to provide you with SEO information or data management or setup. But when they design it, they need to put the code in that would help you collect that information. So that is essential. Like, hey, who's going to set up our Google Analytics account to capture the data to make sure the code is embedded in our website on the necessary pages.
Okay. Um,
And Google
yeah.
Analytics is free. An account can be free. The basic account is free. So, and the basic account gives you the code that you need.
Okay. I'm making notes in our notes section
That's
here.
it.
Yeah. So, and use Google Analytics, which we've spoken a little bit about before. As soon as I learned how to spell analytics, we were okay. Um, okay, so we've covered a bunch of stuff here this evening for you folks, and we've touched on all of these things because all of these things are really important. You know, when you're engaging someone to do web design for you, you want someone who is able to help you with all of these things. And if they're not able to help you with all of these things, you want to move on to find someone who can, because you don't want to spend your money, um, having someone who's not able to do everything that you need to do to have a quality website. Whether it's a small website or a big sprawling thing, you want a certain level of quality for your money, right? So they need to be able to answer your questions about all of these things. And I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
I, I would end with saying, finding your web designer is like if you've ever had construction rehab done in your house. You don't just hire the cheapest guy or your Uncle Johnny's friend
Right.
because the pricing is good. Because Uncle Johnny's friend gets in, he's ripped out a cabinet, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a supporting wall." You're like, "Whoa, Uncle Johnny." You're getting ready to bring
Yeah.
down my whole kitchen, and then you know a $2,000 project is now into like $8,000 because you need another wall, it needs a supporting
And,
beam, you
no.
needed to relocate the gas line. The same thing would happen with your website. You see a website that has 7 pages, and every page has beautiful images on it and video. I had a client one day showed me somebody's website, and they had their security system linked to their website so that you could determine if there was a long line outside. That's how much volumes of traffic that they would get, that people didn't want to wait in line. Like, is it going to be really crowded when I get there? If so, I probably
Right.
won't eat.
Right.
So they put that feature in, and they're like, "Yeah, I want this in mine." And I'm like, "You don't have a security system, so."
Well, then.
Well, and they're like, "Yeah, but I like that feature," and I'm like, "But you don't actually have a purpose for that feature yet. That's a nice down the line item
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we should consider." So be realistic. If you can't afford marble countertops, don't.
Don't order marble countertops.
Like, you can't be like, "Oh, I'm going to get marble countertops and my budget's $2,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would say be realistic and be thorough with your decision making and question asking. If people can't answer your questions, reconsider it. If you need some assistance, get it. Go to a small business development center. Uh, Find somebody else who actually has gone through the process and been burnt. They'll help you. They'll probably want to help you because they know the feeling of being burnt by a web designer.
Right. Right.
If you get caught in a web design conflict, meaning like somebody wants to hold hostage your your domain name and web hosting, see a mediator. Truly,
Mm,
it'll probably save you money in the end
mm-hmm.
by just going to go get it mediated to
Okay.
say who owns what, and if you paid, your fees up front, or at least a retainer fee, because everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants a retainer fee. That
Mm-hmm.
retainer
Mm-hmm.
fee probably paid for that domain and web hosting account, and so you should be in the clear. You might not have any graphics on there when you get done. There may not be no content left, but if you've
Right.
had that website for a long time and it's truly your company's website, you want that, because think of all the print materials you've already had printed with that website on there. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what I will say is be thorough in your decision making, and it's not something that you need to rush into. Plan accordingly.
Okay. Well, this is our final episode in this series as we wrap this up, Taking Your Business Online, an 8-part series designed to help you, the entrepreneur, make smart decisions before putting yourself out there to the world on the internet. If you haven't seen the first 7 episodes, they are available on YouTube on the Homewood Nation channel, so please just check them out. And in fact, right after this, I'm going to go ahead and put all of these together into a playlist. But
Binge watch. You can binge watch them over your holiday break while you're traveling.
Netflix got nothing on us anyway. um, but the other thing we need to say here, speaking of holidays, is this is also our last episode for 2014. So the first thing we want to say is happy holidays to everybody. Stay well, stay safe, have fun, and try to maintain an attitude of gratitude, surviving another year, assuming you do make it to the end. And hope you're able to enjoy your loved ones wherever they may be. And the end of the year is also a good time to do some planning and some envisioning for the next year, so 2015. We hope that this series we did for you will be really helpful for you in planning, the matter of going online with your business. And that, I think, is all we need to say here. This is our last episode of 2014. We look forward to seeing you in 2015. And I'm going to go ahead and say, drop us a line if there are specific topics that you would like for us to address in 2015. And I'm stepping out on a limb here. Ms. Williams, are we okay with this?
Yes, yes, and we already have talked about having a Google Hangout just about Hangouts. Like, how do you hang out? How do you just jump on a Google Hangout? I've actually moved to having most of my meetings like, do I really have to come and see you like in person?
Right. So maybe we'll kick off the year with a hangout about hangouts, and then take it from there. And so you can spend some time yourselves thinking about what would be most useful to me, because we want to help you succeed.
I got a feeling Facebook is going to be one big one next year with their new policies that are rolling out.
Oh, yeah. You think we may see people kind of migrating over into Google Plus land?
Google Plus, I want them to buy their own domains. I want them to buy their own domains so that they can own their content and search it and back it up and have a backup plan.
Yes.
But I want you to enjoy the end of this year, and please, really do enjoy your family and friends. Have joyous times, make memories, be a good digital citizen. Don't post people's pictures before you ask them.
Yeah. So we don't want to see it. Right?
You know, that holiday party person, the person who's taking all the pictures and then like 3 weeks later, like, so you remember holiday party throwback? And you're like, wait a minute. I didn't ask you to post that picture. I didn't have that picture of me.
Right. So, alrighty.
Till next year.
Till next year. Thank you so much, Ms. Williams, and thank you everyone for watching. You folks all take care. Good night.